The night I found out the truth. I was holding her favorite mug. The one I bought her on our first anniversary, cream-colored, with a tiny painted rose on the handle. I remember thinking she'd love it. I remember the way her face lit up. I was still holding that mug when I read the messages. I didn't drop it. I didn't scream. I didn't even breathe. I just stood there, in the kitchen, at 2 in the morning, while the woman I thought I was going to marry was asleep in the next room. And the entire last 2 years of my life collapsed around me like a burning building. This is the story of how I fell in love with the most beautiful liar I'd ever met. And how, in the end, the truth she'd been hiding didn't just break my heart. It destroyed everything I thought I knew about myself. Welcome to Toxic Love Stories. I'm your narrator. And tonight, we're going somewhere dark. My name is Marcus. And before all of this, before the lies, before the betrayal, before the night that shattered everything, I was just a regular guy. 28 years old. Software developer. I lived in a mid-size apartment that was too quiet but that I'd convinced myself I liked. I cooked on Sundays. I called my mom every week. I had 2 good friends and a lot of mediocre acquaintances. I was, in every possible definition of the word, ordinary. And I was fine with that. I'd spent most of my 20s watching friends chase extraordinary things, extraordinary careers, extraordinary women, extraordinary experiences, and I'd watched most of them crash and burn. I wanted simple. I wanted real. I wanted someone I could trust. Then I met Serena. Serena Cole was 26 when we met at a mutual friend's birthday party. She was standing near the window, slightly apart from the crowd, holding a glass of red wine she'd barely touched. She had this quality, this rare, gravitational stillness, that made you want to move toward her. Dark eyes. Sharp jaw. Hair that fell in loose waves over one shoulder. She laughed at something someone said, and it wasn't a performance. It was real. Sudden and unguarded and completely, devastatingly genuine. I was gone before I'd said a single word to her. But here's the thing about Serena, and I can see it so clearly now, looking back through the wreckage, she had this gift. This almost terrifying ability to make you feel like you were the only person in the room. In the world. Like she'd been waiting her whole life specifically for you. I didn't know then that she gave everyone that feeling. There's one more person in this story you need to know. His name was Donovan Reed. Donovan was Serena's co-worker. Her friend. Her creative collaborator at the marketing firm where she worked. I knew about Donovan from day one. She mentioned him casually, the way you mention furniture. Just part of the landscape of her life. I never had a reason to worry about Donovan. That was my first mistake. The relationship. We started dating in October. The kind of October that feels designed for falling in love, the air carrying that first cold bite, the city wrapped in amber and gold, evenings short enough that you had an excuse to stay indoors together. Our first date was supposed to be dinner, but we ended up talking for 4 hours at a coffee shop and never even ordered food. We talked about everything. Our families, our fears, our favorite films, the ways we'd both been hurt before. She was open in a way I wasn't used to. Vulnerable. Or what I thought was vulnerable. She told me about her parents' divorce when she was 12. About how her father left without a real goodbye. Serena, I think that's why I struggle with trust. Not giving it, I mean. I give it too easily. Receiving it. Believing that someone will actually stay. I reached across the table and touched her hand. I told her I understood. I told her I wasn't going anywhere. God, I meant it. By December, we were official. By February, she had a drawer at my apartment. By April, she'd met my mother, who adored her immediately, obviously, and I'd met her friends, her cat, her whole small, curated world. She was affectionate in a way that felt intoxicating. She'd send me texts in the middle of the day for no reason. Just a line. A thought. Saw a cloud shaped like a bear. Thought of you. Don't ask me why. I'd screenshot every single one. She cooked badly and knew it and found it hilarious. She had strong opinions about music and almost none about food. She cried at documentary films about animals and refused to apologize for it. She read 3 books at once and finished all of them. She was everything. I suppose the first crack appeared around month 6. It was so small I barely noticed. It wasn't a fight. It wasn't a red flag. It was just a distance. Like someone had turned the warmth down 1 degree. You didn't feel cold. You just felt slightly less warm. She was distracted. Not always, not dramatically, but sometimes she'd be right beside me and I'd feel somehow alone. I'd ask if she was okay. Serena, I'm fine, Marcus. Just tired. Work has been insane. And I believed her. Because it was plausible. Because she wasn't wrong, work did seem demanding. There were late nights, weekend calls, last-minute projects. She was ambitious. I respected that. Donovan's name started appearing more in conversation. Not conspicuously. Just more. Donovan thinks we should pitch this differently. Me and Donovan had to stay late on the Reynolds account. You'd actually like Donovan, he's pretty funny. I said I should meet him sometime. She said yeah, definitely. We never did. Month 9. A Friday night. She cancelled our dinner plans at the last minute. Serena, the client meeting ran over, babe. I'm so sorry. Can we do tomorrow? I said of course. I sat in the restaurant alone for 20 minutes before going home, where I ate cereal standing at the kitchen counter and told myself this was just what adult relationships look like. Compromise. Flexibility. Patience. My friend Theo thought differently. Theo, I'm not saying she's cheating, man. I'm just saying, you've been accommodating this woman for 9 months and she cancels on you for work? On a Friday? That's... Marcus, she's dedicated to her job. That's not a crime.
Theo. No.
But it's a pattern. I defended her. I always defended her. I was so in love with who I thought she was that I refused to look at what was actually in front of me. Until I couldn't refuse anymore. It started with a phone. Not snooping, I want to be clear about that. I've heard people say, you shouldn't go through your partner's phone. And maybe they're right. But I wasn't snooping. Her phone buzzed on the kitchen counter while she was in the shower, and the screen lit up with a message preview, and the name I saw made me freeze. Donovan. And the first 3 words of the message. Last night was... The screen went dark. The message disappeared back into the phone. And I stood there with my coffee going cold, feeling something terrible crawling up from my stomach into my chest. I didn't touch the phone. I put my coffee down very carefully. I went to the living room and sat on the couch and stared at the wall. She came out of the shower 20 minutes later, hair damp, smiling. She kissed me on the cheek. She poured herself coffee. She talked about wanting to go to the farmer's market. She was so completely, seamlessly normal that for a moment I thought, maybe I misread it. Maybe it was nothing. But my hands were shaking. I spent the next 4 days in a private hell. I couldn't ask her directly. Not yet. Because a part of me, the part that was still in love, the part that had already bought a ring and put it in a box in my sock drawer, couldn't face what the answer might be. If I didn't ask, there was still a world where I was wrong. Where it was innocent. Where she was still the person I believed she was. But I started paying attention differently. Not obsessively, just awake. And once you start paying attention, you can't stop seeing things. The way she angled her phone away when she texted. The way she'd step outside to take certain calls. The way a particular smile, warm and private and nothing like the one she gave me, would cross her face sometimes when she was looking at her screen. Small things. Tiny things. The kind of things that individually mean nothing and together mean everything. The night I found out for certain was a Tuesday. She had told me she was having dinner with her girlfriend Maya. I had no reason not to believe her. I'd met Maya. Maya was real. But something, some nagging, exhausted instinct, made me check Maya's Instagram story at 9 p.m. Maya was at a concert. Alone. She'd posted a video 40 minutes earlier. Serena wasn't with Maya. She came home at 11:15. I was sitting at the kitchen table. The lights were low. Her mug, that cream-colored mug with the rose, was in my hands. She walked in and smiled. "Serena, hey, you're still up. I thought you had an early call." "Marcus, how was dinner?" "Serena, good. We went to that Italian place Maya loves. You know how she gets about the pasta." She was moving to the fridge. Casual. Unbothered. Getting water. "Marcus, Maya was at a concert tonight." Stillness. She didn't turn around immediately. There was a pause, half a second, maybe less, that told me everything before she said a word. "Serena, what?" "Marcus, I saw her Instagram story. She was at the venue. Alone. Posted it at 9 p.m. She turned around. And I watched the construction happen in real time, the split second behind her eyes where the story was being assembled, the version she would tell me. I'd never noticed her doing that before. Or maybe I had, and I'd looked away. "Serena, oh, no, we had dinner earlier. She went to the concert after. I thought I told you." Smooth. Immediate. Completely plausible if you didn't know to disbelieve her. "Marcus, where were you, Serena?" "Serena, I just told you." "Marcus, the truth. Where were you?" The silence that followed was the loudest thing I'd ever heard. She didn't confess that night. She deflected, argued, cried, accused me of not trusting her. It was a masterclass in misdirection, and I'd spent 2 years being primed to believe her, so a part of me almost got swept into the current of her denial. But I went into her phone that night. I know what I said earlier, but when the person you love looks you in the eyes and lies, and you can feel the lie like something physical, like a wall between you, trust becomes something you can no longer afford. I went into her phone. And I read everything. 11 months. 11 months of messages. Of photos. Of plans made and kept and never mentioned to me. Of an entire relationship, warm, playful, intimate, loving, running parallel to ours, hidden in plain sight. Donovan wasn't just a co-worker. He wasn't just a friend. He was the person she talked to every night after she said goodnight to me. He was the person she'd spent the last 4 Friday nights with. He was the person she'd told, in a message dated 6 months ago, "I think I might love you. I don't know what to do about that." I sat on the bathroom floor. I don't know for how long. The tiles were cold. The house was completely quiet. And I tried to figure out which version of the last 2 years was real, which memories I was allowed to keep, and which had been built on fiction. I couldn't answer that question then. I'm not sure I can answer it now. The confrontation. I didn't wake her. I slept, if you can call it that, on the couch. And in the morning, when she walked out and found me already dressed and sitting at the table with her phone in my hand, she understood immediately what had happened. I'd never seen her look like that before. The composure she always carried, the unshakable elegance that was so much a part of her, it fell away. And what was underneath wasn't guilt. Not at first. It was fear. "Serena, Marcus." "Marcus, 11 months." She said nothing. "Marcus, 11 months, Serena. Do you understand that? While you were telling me you loved me. While you were meeting my family. While we were talking about moving in together, you were with him. Serena, it's complicated. It's not what you think." "Marcus, I read everything. Every message. Don't tell me what I think." She sat down. Her hands were in her lap. She was very still. "Serena, I didn't plan this. I want you to know that. I didn't plan any of it." "Marcus, that's your defense. It wasn't planned." "Serena, I know how it sounds. It started at work. We were close, and then we were closer, and I didn't know how to stop it, and I didn't know how to tell you, and every week I told myself it was going to end." "Marcus, for 11 months." "Serena, yes." There was something almost surreal about how quiet my voice was. I'd always imagined if this ever happened to me I would fall apart. Yelling, crying, something explosive. But I felt strangely underwater. Like the shock had numbed everything below the surface. Marcus, do you love him? I watched her face fracture. And I had my answer before she spoke. Serena, I don't know. I think maybe I do. But Marcus, I love you too. I do. What we have is real. Marcus, don't do that. Don't make this about how much you love me. Serena, I need you to understand. Marcus, I understand perfectly. You had everything you needed from me, stability, devotion, someone who would have done anything for you, and it wasn't enough. It was never going to be enough because you were always going to want more. That's who you are. And you knew it. You knew it when you got with me, and you let me build my entire life around you anyway. She started crying. And I noticed something inside me, something that would have broken wide open for her tears 6 months ago, had gone quiet. Serena, I'm sorry. Marcus, I'm so sorry. I know that doesn't fix anything. I know there's nothing I can say. Marcus, you're right. There's nothing you can say. She asked if we could talk more. If we could try something, counseling, time apart, anything. She said she didn't want to lose me. She said she was confused and scared and she'd made a terrible mistake. I listened to all of it. I let her talk until she'd said everything she needed to say. And then I told her I needed her to get her things and leave. Serena, Marcus, please. Marcus, not today. Not this week. I need you to go. She went. And I sat alone in the apartment, surrounded by small traces of her, her jacket on the hook, a book face down on the nightstand, that mug in the dish rack, and I tried to figure out how to breathe inside what was left of my life. The days that followed were ugly in that quiet, invisible way that grief tends to be. I went to work. I answered emails. I said I'm fine to everyone who asked and meant none of it. I took the ring out of my sock drawer. I'd bought it 4 months earlier. A simple platinum band with one small diamond. Nothing extravagant. I'd picked it because I thought she'd prefer something clean. Something real. I held it for a long time. Then I put it in a drawer I never opened. Theo came over. He didn't say, "I told you so." He brought beer and said nothing useful and was exactly what I needed. "Gio, you're going to be okay. I know that sounds like nothing right now. But you are." I wanted to believe him. And here is where I thought this story ended. Betrayal. Loss. A slow, painful climb back to some version of normal. But the story wasn't over. Because 3 weeks later, Serena called me. And she told me something that changed everything I thought I understood. Large black square section 6. The twist. I almost didn't answer. I let it ring twice and told myself to let it go to voicemail. I answered. "Serena, I need to tell you something. Not to get you back. Not to defend myself. I think you deserve to know the full truth. Even if it doesn't change anything." "Marcus, what is it, Serena?" A pause on her end. Long enough that I thought she'd changed her mind. "Serena, the reason I couldn't end things with Donovan, the reason it went on so long when I knew it was wrong, is because he told me he'd tell you things about me. Things from before we met. Things I'd never told you. And I was terrified." I sat very still. "Marcus, what things?" "Serena, before I met you, I was in a bad situation. Donovan he was part of it. He knew things I was ashamed of. He knew about a period in my life when I was reckless and destructive and I'd hurt people. And when things got serious between you and me, he reached out. He said if I stopped seeing him, if I chose you over him, he'd tell you everything. He said you'd leave me if you knew who I really was." The sound design should do something subtle here, like the floor has dropped out. I didn't speak for a very long time. "Marcus, he was blackmailing you." "Serena, yes. I know that word sounds extreme. I kept telling myself it wasn't that serious. That I could manage it. That it would stop. But it never stopped. And I was so afraid of losing you that I let it go on. I let him control me to protect what we had. And I know how broken that logic is. I know I should have told you. I should have trusted you. I was a coward. There was another silence. The kind that asks you to decide who you are. Marcus, were your feelings for him real? Serena, at the beginning, maybe. They were confused. He'd been in my life for a long time, and confusion and fear can look like feeling if you're not careful. But Marcus, what was real, what has always been real, is how I feel about you. That was never a lie. I need you to believe that even if you can't forgive me for anything else. I hung up the phone. Not angrily, just because I didn't have any words left. I've spent a long time sitting with what she told me, trying to figure out how to hold two things at once, the genuine love that I believe existed between us, and the profound, inexcusable failure of her choices. Because here is what I've come to understand, and it's not a comfortable thing to understand. The betrayal was real. The damage was real. The months of deception, the lies she looked me in the eyes and told me, the version of our relationship she was building on a fractured foundation, all of that was real, and none of it becomes okay because she was scared, or because someone was holding something over her. She had a choice. She made it every single day for 11 months. Fear can explain a thing without excusing it. But here is also what I know. She was trapped in a way I never saw. She was ashamed of things she'd never told me, which means I had never fully known her, which means in some way I was in love with a carefully edited version of a person. And she was so convinced that the real her, the full, flawed, complicated her, was unlovable. That the only way I'd stay was if she kept the darkness out of sight. Donovan didn't create that belief. He just weaponized it. He found the wound that already existed and pressed his thumb into it. I think about that. More than I want to. I think about the version of this story where she'd come to me instead. Where she'd said, 3 months into our relationship, there are things in my past I'm ashamed of, and someone is threatening to use them against us, and I'm scared. I think about whether I would have stayed. Whether I would have been enough of a safe place for her to land. I want to believe I would have been. I'll never know. The twist in this story, the thing that kept me awake for months afterward, wasn't the cheating. Cheating happens. People fail each other in that way, and it's devastating and it's survivable. The real twist was this: the woman who betrayed me did it, in part, because she didn't believe she deserved to be loved without conditions. Because someone had convinced her, maybe Donovan, maybe her father who left without a goodbye, maybe the crueler parts of her own mind, that her real self was a secret that had to be managed and contained and hidden from the people who loved her. And that lie, not the cheating, not the messages, not any of the specific terrible choices she made, that lie is the darkest thing in this story. Because she passed it to me. Because after she left, I started doing the same thing. Editing myself before dates. Keeping my pain at arm's length. Deciding what version of me was safe to show someone. I caught her cheating. And her dark truth almost became mine. I'm telling you this not because I want sympathy. Not because she's a monster and I'm a saint. We're both complicated people who failed each other in different ways. I'm telling you this because somewhere out there, someone is doing exactly what she did. Carrying something shameful in silence. Letting fear make decisions that love should be making. Allowing someone else to define what they deserve. And somewhere out there, someone is doing what I did, loving so completely and so blindly that they missed every sign, every fracture, every quiet desperate signal that something was wrong. I don't know if Serena and Donovan are still together. I don't know what she told him about her. I've heard she's doing better. I hope that's true. I keep the ring in the back of the drawer. Not as punishment. Not as a reminder of what I lost. As a promise to myself, that the next time I love someone, I'll love them in the daylight. All of them. The whole, complicated, unedited truth of them. And I'll ask them to do the same for me. Because the scariest, most necessary thing in any relationship isn't saying I love you. It's saying, this is who I really am. And I'm trusting you with that. If this story stayed with you, subscribe. Share it with someone who needs to hear it. We'll see you in the next dark place.